Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hi, I'm Sue Rose Minahan and host of Talk Cosmos, an hour panel every week where we engage fantastic astrologers, and we have 3 ongoing panels, and today is one of them. It will be the Planet Buzz, and today's topic relates to a fantastic idea that really we could relate to the entire nodal system transit that will continue until January 18th. Of next year, and that is new language for old ideas. We're in the Taurus archetype. That's how we're relating life. We're forming new values. That's one way we can consider this whole conversation. And with that said, we'll jump onward to that concept, because how we speak, it can be an art form. There's so many potentialities. The South Node being in Sagittarius, Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, it has us form our belief systems, our visions. It's through higher learning. It's through cultural exchange. There's many aspects, not as far as planetary aspects, but considerations that it involves. The planets that rule it, Jupiter, is shifting signs, has shifted signs, thank you, on the 13th of May. And Mercury, ruling the North Node, is experiencing a shift, as it will energetically. 3 times a year it goes retrograde, apparent, reminding us, of course, it's our viewpoint as it orbits the sun. It seems to go backwards, but it's our experience. It also is what they call out of bounds. This happens with various planets, not all planets, but various planets, and it means without restrictions. It's an astronomical situation. There's a lot of information about it. You can Google it. In fact, Cosmic Collaboration talked about Mars out of bounds. But it is significant how it also adds to our experience. And it can depend on how it of course, how it relates to our chart and everything else. And that's what these conversations are about. The point is that we're relating this conversation to the eclipse coming up. Now, the eclipse is a potent full moon or new moon. This is a full moon coming up on May 26th. That is like steroids, you could say, a full moon on steroids. There's so many ways to explain it. And that's exactly what we're talking about. It's a new language for old ideas, and it happens all throughout history, and the interpretation is sort of what gets mixed up sometimes. Yes, like, does that make sense or doesn't that make sense? And who are we listening to? Maybe the way I talk is not the way you like. Well, hey, we have 4 people here, and that's the glory of it. And it's also the birth of new things, and that has a lot to do with Talk Cosmos. Is not just relating facts, but it's an art form. Conversation. Yes, and it's the nodal right. So without going on forever, I am so glad to say it's time for Planet Buzz.
Focusing on planetary ecliptic orbital cycles and planetary pairs called synodic cycles connecting the planets at the same degree that begin our relationship, these are the members of Planet Buzz.
I'm Sue Rose Minahan, host of Talk Cosmos, an evolutionary astrologer and consultant, plus a certified color energy coach. I explore creative expression as an artist, a musician, and write abundantly, stories to poetry. I love investigating mythology's language, philosophizing eternity, and I'm a perpetual student of life, seeing oneness of body, spirit of people, animals and nature.
I'm Leslie Francis, author of the 2019 and 2020 Llewellyn Sun Sign books, a practicing professional astrologer intuitive, a lecturer, and host of my own podcast, Coloring Outside the Box. My lifelong search to understand what it is to be human led me to develop my own approach to astrology called purpose-centered astrology. I passionately seek to support people in their greatest act of creativity, living life, through consultations and webinars. Creator of star cards, I love talking and making people laugh.
I'm Tara All, an astrologer, writer, and artist who loves spirituality and metaphysics. I practice and teach evolutionary astrology, and I work with the tarot, crystals, hermeticism, and animal medicine. My approach is creative and experiential, and I created a YouTube video series called We Are the Planets through EA Zoom meetings. I also speak at conferences. Currently, I'm the resident astrologer and lead writer for Sage Goddess, and I serve on the ESAR board as marketing director.
And I'm Dr. Laura Tad. I have a PhD in human science and work as a spiritually oriented psychological astrologer with people around the world. I teach and lecture on astrology both in person and remotely. I have a blog. I have written for the Mountain Astrologer, Celestial Vibes, and Tarot.com. Additionally, I am the educational coordinator for Live Life Resources, an educational nonprofit specializing in resiliency training, education, and research.
And as the ancient Hermetic code reveals,
as below, so above. As above, so below.
And here we are. Yes, indeed. So let's say that language, if we're getting new language, that's like a rebirth. And I'll enter with this. I started to look through my books. I have a lot of books. And Chop Wood, Carry Water. I had never read it, I must say, but it was gleaning through it like a reference. And up popped pretty soon about 1976, a bicentennial for the United States of America Declaration. And Tom Wolfe, author perhaps familiar to many that wrote countless books, known for Look Homeward Angel, You Can't Go Home Again, The Electric Cool Aid, Acid Test, The Painted Word, and Leslie, what was that other book?
The Bonfires of the Vanities.
There you go. Tons of them. So people are aware and connected. Said what was happening then was the Great Awakening. Well, what was that? And it's been called now the Conscious Movement. It's been called the New Age. It's been called the Aquarian Conspiracy, which at this time in life is like got a lot of cousins, conspiracy about all kinds of things. But this new spirituality is not, as we know, really new. It's recoined. Like, for instance, even Huxley called it the perennial philosophy inherent in every traditional sacred mysticism. If you go to Ram Dass, Be Here Now, he said every label, it goes. And even the term enlightenment, if you say you are you? It is a constant rethreading of ideas, consciousness, and expanding from the collective consciousness to expanding the collective unconsciousness. And okay, so I think I will, the last thing I want to add is synchronicity. I realize, my gosh, doesn't that tell it all? C.G. Jung coined that term to mean that coincidences weren't just maybe happenings, but celestial. He didn't say celestial, but truly, let me find my notes here, Sue. A relationship that was not unrelated, but yet something with time and space that meant something of cosmic proportion. So it changed our ideas. It opened it up because, I will say this, I keep things. I keep little notes, quotes, and things to remind myself to get out of an old thought, and I forget them. And then suddenly you hear them, and it opens up the door again. Or you hear what they say, a guru that opens up an eye, and then you toss that one out. So let's hear it from the others with my monologue here. Yes, of new thought. Laura, Dr. Tad. Yes.
So a couple things that came to mind while you were speaking, and thinking about 1976, and Neptune was in Sagittarius at the time, and Jupiter, which rules Sagittarius, just got into Pisces. So we have this flipped archetype that happens to be going on at the moment, with threading back to 45 years ago, that we do have the same archetypes in play at the moment. So that was just an interesting synchronistic alignment that happened with what you were talking about, Sue. And also that in Jung's book, Synchronicity, he talks very directly about astrology. He has a study on astrology in his book, Synchronicity. So he used quite a bit of astrology in the latter part of his life and career. But I think that as part of this new language and new ways of communicating, I was doing a little bit of research because my 9th house Virgo moon always finds that yummy and juicy material. And this current astrological alignment that we have, this signature of the South Node in Sag and North Node in Gemini, with Jupiter having just ingressed into Pisces, as much as both of those signatures independently happen fairly regularly, right? It's an 18.5-year cycle for the nodes, a 12-year cycle for Jupiter. They haven't lined up like this for 130 years. In 1891 was the last time the South Node was in Sagittarius and Jupiter ingressed into Pisces. And doing a little bit of research, discovered that was when England, London, connected to continental Europe with the telephone. So we get this communication, this new way of communicating that's showing up for the very first time, the last time this signature showed up. And it was also the opening of Carnegie Hall, which was also sort of a new way of communicating old things, because it was classical music and music that was contemporary at the time, but also older, being presented in a new format in a new environment. So I thought that was an interesting expression of this signature and what we might be sort of thinking about in this next year when we have this combination of the nodes where they are in Jupiter for the next, it'll ingress back into Aquarius, but the next year or so, lining up of what type of the communication, not just being words themselves, but how we go about communicating, the methodology in which we express ourselves, also going through transformation.
That is so significant. And it brings it right back home when I was beginning off that it can be an art form. And music, I want to just add, is so important with Pisces. Absolutely. Leslie, I see you.
Sort of nodding, you mean? Well, I find it really interesting because, of course, Jupiter is forming, while it's in Pisces, a wide square to that nodal axis. And for me, that's an indication, of true expansion, like getting outside of the ways that you've looked at things before. Even though Jupiter is the ruler of the South Node, it's in the sign of Pisces. And for me, the world of Pisces is what I call the world of all possibilities. Mm-hmm. So here we are, and we're going to immerse ourselves, and I hope not drown ourselves, but anyways, immerse ourselves in imagination, in imagery, and allow our senses to float free, so that when Jupiter retrogrades back into Aquarius, we can get a sense of direction from it. So, any attempt at this point in time to be super hyper logical about what this means is going to be a bit of a challenge. So again, we're back to synchronicity. So I would say to people, pay attention to whatever imagery strikes you, whatever, animals cross your path. whatever you you feel in your solar plexus, because that will be a key to you beginning to language your life in different ways.
You know what? This is so profound. I love this panel and I love all this conversation. I have a lot of ninth house, and we'll talk about our personal things at the half hour. But Laura, I'm thinking, and with connecting with both of you, are saying that the telephone just going across is a lot like ESP now, and in a sense using so many other forms, you know, realizing that we are, with Pisces, we are part of our native inheritance is a connection to our spirit. We are a spirit. So with that said, you know, it's and how life has tried to talk about that since the beginning of time. And affirmations, I think affirmations also, that was a thought that I was thinking, it tries to take an old feeling, if this relates in this whole idea, you know, something that was negative and twisting it around and make it work for you. You know, it's anyway, such as grateful, you know, it's a gift with an opportunity. But so maybe one thing, unless somebody wants to pop in, I'm thinking that this full moon, the lunar eclipse that we're talking about, is May 26th, but we're in the eclipse season. The energies are strong, as we had declared, and it will be in early Sagittarius. It's 5 degrees and 26 minutes. So it is this portal, I would suggest, that connects the heart and the mind. If you look at it with Venus and Mercury so closely attached as far as the degrees, it's conjunct. And it is trying to rewild. I think the word rewild, that's a new word I've been hearing. You know, we're so can be disassociated from nature, right? I mean, you can live in an apartment building totally devoid of any plants. So rewilding is something important to build that relationship to our identity.
Well, if we could add that full moon total lunar eclipse is going to be conjunct the south node, square Jupiter, as Leslie pointed out. So to me, Jupiter squaring the nodes right now is significant. And then the eclipse, of course, is just going to link that in more. But when I think about rewilding, and I agree that term has come up in actually my world at Sage Goddess too, we have a whole set on rewilding, like it's definitely being used right now. But rewilding to me, when it comes to Jupiter, of course, it's also connecting with nature outside, but Jupiter's always about getting back to the nature of what we are, like just the natural essence of what we are. And especially in Pisces, there's even more of a return to just what we are without everything else we've layered on top of it. I was thinking too about what Jupiter square the nodes. Jupiter corresponds to the third eye chakra. So that can be another really helpful thing right now in general, working with that energy center, opening that energy center. That's a big key to not just the north node, but both the south node and the north node. When we have a planet square the nodes, it's a signifier that neither the past way nor the quote unquote future way have actually fully fleshed out. So what we're actually needing to do is integrate, and Jupiter is a big part of that integration. So I feel like, yeah, the third eye, and the third eye, you guys, in general, in the chakra system, is considered like the big commander. Like they will say that even that if your third eye chakra is open and balanced, you don't even have to worry about any of the chakras below that, because it's like it's linked in with the pituitary gland in the sense of how it commands like the whole body. And so there's something to be said about getting in tune with that part of ourselves, not because I think we shouldn't work with all the other parts. That's not why we're here, but because there is an overall level of vision or command or alignment or self-regulation that I think can happen that restores us to a natural state of flow.
Yeah, I am thrilled that you brought up that fact, because rewilding I had not mentioned, but yes, that's the excitement is that it reconnects us to our wildness inside and the truth, our authenticity. Yes, that is absolutely right. And just to mention too about the third chakra, which many people are familiar with the chakras, but there's a way of looking at them too. And I appreciate that part about the commander, because a lot can happen. You have a great heart, but it's that will. Wouldn't you say it's partly connected with the
I'm
will?
saying it's not the third chakra. Jupiter's linked with the third eye chakra.
Oh, the sixth chakra. I see.
Correct.
Yes.
Third eye.
Okay. Thank you.
Ajna,
Thank
the
you.
ajna. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. Our inner vision. Yes. Of yes. Thank you.
But it's
Okay.
also, but it's our ability to see life as it is. Right? That's a big part of what that third eye, what the ajna energy center is being able to expand to see life as it is in its full essence, which is a very Jupiterian thing.
And really, that's what this new language for old ideas, it reconnects, because we're trying to get back to the core. There's so many ways. Like I was thinking that I was reading also about a 12th century Japanese Zen monk named Dogen, who wrote instructions to the Zen cook. And basically it's how to cook or do any work. He says, keep your eyes open. Not even one grain of rice gets lost. Wash it thoroughly. Put it in the pot, light the fire, cook it. There's an old saying, he says, see the pot as your own head, the water as your lifeblood. And the point is that it was vital to clarify, because words clarify. That's why we have the Gemini, it labels. That's one of the main features, which I tend to forget, but the identifies where we're at, our environment, immediate environment, and you have it harmonize with our life and our work. So, I mean, that's whether we actually get there or not, but what you're saying too is, I think we're all saying that's another factor but so many philosophies have tried to recoin. So again, doesn't have to be in the word. It could be like we were talking about art or dance or music.
Well, the same way that Dr. Tad was just saying that we're having this unique lineup of energies again. What did you say? 1891's the last time we had the South and the North Node or whatever. Yeah. So I'm thinking, okay, and Jupiter square the nodes. So we know that history always repeats itself, but we get a chance to look at it in a new way. And I'm just saying that Jupiter in the third eye helps us do that. Like, because I mean, Grant, we could go back and read Marcus Aurelius stuff and it's applicable today. I mean, we don't change that much as human beings, really. Like that's when it comes to those spiritual things, we don't. So it's like, how many chances do we get? Another chance, another chance. So for, Dr. Tad putting that out, that's very interesting to me, because I think, whoa, okay, that's back up now. But we're in a different position to look at it, right? We have different techniques and different knowledge and different understanding, but to me, it's not lost on me that the past is present, like literally with that signature. So
yeah, I just want to throw this in. Apparently, Microsoft, I think it's Microsoft, just announced that they have created the smallest yet most powerful microchip ever. Some of this stuff that I'm not making any comments about that, just interested in the timing of it. Yeah. It comes as we're talking about this, right? More information, as Laura was talking, it's interesting to think about. So if that's what happened in 1891, what are we going to be looking forward to going forward? I'm going to toss it. Maybe we're going to discover that we can telepathically communicate with people and that we actually don't need physical devices.
Yeah, I think so. Because yes. And if I might add about that, what we're talking, it's all thrown in here together, but about the idea of taking old ideas or old language and new the language and the ideas. The point is that it's partly like, why do we care? Well, it's the experience. Language has gotten, I think, so concerned with material of how to communicate. How do you, like, I just bought a TV console, all the instructions, do this, do that, look at the pictures, follow the rules, blah, blah, blah. They're necessary. But joy, by connecting with the wildness outside, by bringing in inside our inherent purpose to have joy. And yes, that's what I wanted to add.
Well, I think the other thing that we need to, I think that it allows us, this alignment that's coming up allows us to have a look at what we believe and perhaps why we believe it and how we language what we believe.
Yeah.
And also speaks to the whole business of the cancel culture and political correctness. So in other words, you can use all the language that you want, but as Tara was talking about, where's the truth of, is it that what you say is actually what you mean and what you truly resonates for you?
Because I think part of what comes with communication and languaging is listening, right? That's an element of this. And so the ability to hear, to listen, that, you can talk, it doesn't mean you're communicating.
Exactly.
And so that being part of this, of how do we communicate, not just give labeling things, right? That has been problematic historically, right? That the labeling of things has led to a lot of the problems in our world. And so how do we communicate in a way that is giving space for truth, right? And that can be part of this Jupiter in Pisces, is the bigger truths, the universal truths that get limited by language, right? Language can be really limiting and impact how we perceive the world. In the cultural anthropology class I teach at a college, one of the videos I show students, there's a professor at a TED Talks video they watch, and she's talking about how a tribe in Africa, they don't have the word left and right. Everything is directional. Everything is cardinal. And so it's my southeast hand, not my left hand. It's my southeast hand. And then if I change directions, it's now my northwest hand. It's the same hand, right?
Fabulous.
So it's a completely different way of conceptualizing your lived experience simply because of language.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Laura, we're going to come back. This is perfect. This supports also what easily was said with Ram Dass saying, the labels, they leave. And Leslie, if you have a quick thing, I don't want to.
I just wanted to say that this is also a time of really paying attention to symbols, to what, symbolically what really matters to you. Because that's often a key to your joy and to your heart.
Yes. So we will be back again. And this is Planet Buzz with Leslie Francis and Tara All and Dr. Laura Tad, that we call Laura. Okay. We'll be back talking about language. All right.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We're currently in the period of Taurus. By leaving a cycle based upon initiation, the energy of Taurus integrates spirit into a solid form of matter that is tangible and physical. It's an earth sign, concerned with self-sufficiency and the values to maintain the strength of a life form throughout its survival.
Whether we know it or not, each of us are on a quest to discover our true self. And the road we travel to accomplish this goal is unique for each of us. This is Marie O'Neill's hero's journey of walking her path and overcoming hardship and heartache in her book, and The Lotus Opened. As a memoir of enduring an absent mother and a harsh pseudo-family, and surviving ongoing abuse and trauma, Marie learns to trust in the divine and in her inner self, and release herself from the emotional chains that bound her. She discovers her personal power and who she is, and she learns what being free really means. Now available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com in either hardcover, paperback, or ebook, you can order Marie O'Neill's book, And the Lotus Opened, and let Marie be your guide as she leads you on your path to authentic freedom using metaphysics, astrology, Buddhism, and healing practices.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Welcome. This is Amanda Pierce, astrologer and paradigm shifter, and you're listening to Talk Cosmos on Alternative Talk 1150 AM, where we understand how to implement our free will through the cosmos.
Alternative Talk 1150, talk radio for the body, mind, and soul.
Hi, we are back again. This is Planet Buzz for Taurus Archetypal Period, and we're talking about new language for old ideas, not a first-time chapter conversation, except it's right now. It's happening. The lunar eclipse is coming along, and the rulers, Jupiter and Mercury, are shifting gears. Jupiter went into Pisces. It has a 2-month spread easily. It started May 13th, and it's going to continue until July 28th. Mercury is going to stay in Gemini, thank you, but its energy is at the end of the month. It goes right after the eclipse. It will go retrograde, and it will also have unlimited activity because it'll be out of bounds. It's so close to the sun. It moves pretty fast, and it's shifting gears, and it's about communication. And it's about belief systems. And we had an illustrious talk. Leslie finished, everybody finished with the last thought, thank you, about symbols. And Laura brought up the idea that language can be so interpreted differently depending where you live. And that is a great conversation that we're going to continue. But before that, each one of my illustrious members on this fantastic panel have announcements they need to make. We're going to start with Leslie.
Oh, I get to go first? Okay.
Yes.
So I just wanted to let everybody know that we'll be holding, I'm the co-chair of the Canadian Astrology Conference, and we'll be holding it September 24th to 26th online, and featuring focused on the theme of integrating ancient and modern astrology. Dimitri George will be our keynote speaker, and the rest of the cast includes 11 Canadian astrologers. And for heaven's sakes, if I could get my thoughts together, it would be a good thing.
You did fabulous.
So
I'm
just
sorry.
To let everybody know, as in the U.S., that the fee, the early bird fee for this until August the 15th is $115 Canadian, which is maybe $80 US. So please join us. And we're even going to have some giggles and laughs on Saturday night.
I'm doing it. And in fact, we need to add this to your bio. I love this. Let's write me a new bio. I've been meaning to ask you because I know you're so involved. I get those messages. And really, there's some fantastic Canadian astrologers. It's our neighbor.
Okay.
Love it.
Yeah, and everybody needs to know that the Canadian dollar is not worth the same amount of money as the US dollar.
It's true. It's like New Zealand. It is significantly different. So,
So we welcome astrologers from everywhere, but hey.
Yeah, thank you. So that's September 24th to 26th. Is that right?
Oh, and I forgot to say, if you want to register, sorry about that, please go to astrologyconference.ca and you can register and you can see the bios and all the topics and everything of everybody who's speaking.
In the meantime, I'm going to have you add it to your bio. So otherwise, find Leslie Francis at Talk Cosmos and it'll be in there. So it's great. Thank you. Now, Tara, would you like to share what you have?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Well, most of you may already know, but the Northwest Astrological Conference that we call NORWAC is happening Memorial Day weekend. So that's the weekend of May 28th. And it's an awesome conference. It's my home conference, me being from Seattle. And I have 2 lectures there. So if you haven't already checked it out and signed up this year due to COVID, it's online again. So it's easy to attend. And then I also have 2 books. One, I'm a co-author among a bunch of awesome evolutionary astrologers that have come together as international voices of astrology to author a book called Natural Astrology, Signs, Planets, and Houses. That's available on Amazon. And then also Astrology by Moonlight, which is a book that I co-authored with a friend and colleague. And that book is out for pre-order. It's a publisher Llewellyn, so you can find that Amazon or anywhere books are sold. So thanks for tuning in.
Fantastic. And we'll have to add the second book to your bio, Tara. So everybody's got a little assignment. And Laura, Dr. Tad, I know
Yeah, so I have a couple things coming up. I have a 8-week personal myth course that'll be starting June 21st. And I actually haven't gotten the new dates up on my website yet. It has it from a couple of years ago still. So I'll be finishing that up in the next week. But so the personal myth work, it's an 8-week course that is largely self-paced, but there will be, or like within a week, each given week it's self-paced, except for the 4th week where we'll have a Zoom call and gather remotely, and exploring the stories that we carry from our lineage, from our ancestry. So through guided meditation and imagery, we'll be exploring the stories that we carry about love, about finance, about health, about power, that are related to our astrology, but also things we have inherited from our ancestors. So that starts June 21st. I'll have the updated dates on my website later next week at mythicsky.com.
Oh, super. And in that case, too, again, every single one of these astrologers is on the guest page, which I need to really clarify more, but 4th season, and we're in the 4th season. In fact, they've been in most of the seasons. So you can always just email and say, hey, I heard this, lead me forth. Excellent. Really, it's so exciting because, really isn't information and new concepts. That's exactly what each one of you are presenting in just its glorified form. I just love it. It's, I mean, we're not doing trips down we're not doing trips down the Amazon yet, but it's really pretty fantastic. Yeah. Well, let's see. We wanted to go to other factors. And, I was a couple of other books, like, for instance, the I Ching. I opened it up because I was just thinking about words and thoughts and stuff. And I happened to, alliance is what it opened up to. And the word by, I think it's by. And it means side by side, gets close to, assist, enter into alliance with. Well, that's etymology to a certain degree. And in a sense, but I'm just saying that how one idea connects so many other things. And one other thought about words, until we get into the whole concept of real words, how we can, about going back to the left and right that Laura was mentioning about how so interpreted differently. That it's not just our body, but it's a physicality, was this book, Clouds of Memories. It's by a Hawaiian woman, Mona Kahele. And she brings up, and I have not read this book either, except to note that a big part of it was she was mentioning about how the names here on the big island have changed. That because the people living here, the Hawaiian people, have lived for so long on this island, and the traditions, the oral traditions that get carried, and whether it's in Seattle too, like Mount Rainier there, jumping to that, used to be Tahoma, which was part of the Indian Native American language. And of course, we've labeled it, those are Native American, but they were the people living there at that time. They called it Tahoma until this guy Rainier came along, like Columbus. Oh, hey, this is going to be Mount Rainier. Well, they changed it back to Tahoma. And you might say, well, what does it matter? But somehow the conception of acknowledgement and language, so much. And part of it too, she says, they say, well, they've taken this from me and that from me. I can't learn my language in school. What are they going to take next? My life? It's amazing how we consider our language so close to our life. It's how we express ourselves. And yes, there are people like Helen Keller, famously, who managed to connect because she did have her avatar, you could say, that this woman that helped stay with her and teach her through water, how to, which is closely aligned, you might say, with emotion. But language, I think if we can start talking about, and maybe we should begin, and I'll leave this open to us, that each one of us can connect where it is in our chart, or else, unless somebody has a thought about, again, how to expand our interpretation.
Are we talking
language.
about where the full moon falls in our chart?
Yes, maybe we should talk. Yeah, that's
what are we?
thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's in the 3rd and 9th for me. So collecting my thoughts and making a belief system is a little bit, challenging for my discernment of that. Okay. Yeah, I guess I came across with 2 ideas. One was about picking up about this idea that words, what time do we have? Yeah, it changes so much. Like, for instance, I'll finish one thought with that, and then unless somebody has something in mind, we'll go personalize it. For instance, there was, besides that illustration, in the Spanish language, I understand that if I were in English to say, I am hungry, in Spanish, it says, I have hunger, rather than use that in a possessive, like my whole body is, I am this thing. Rather, no, I am who I am, but I have this. I have hunger right now. So I think just that identity of consciousness changes a lot. Okay, I will begin with my own 3rd, 9th house, how this, let somebody else talk. Where is it in your house? Laura or Tara or Leslie, who would like to say where the eclipse is in your house that's getting activated? Maybe
Let's
Laura.
not all talk at the same time.
Yeah, Laura, maybe let's start with you.
Apparently we really don't want to talk about this. No.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it's a shift because, of course, when the North Node progressed into Gemini, it was sitting in my happy 11th house, which put the South Node my 5th house. And now with this eclipse, it's sitting in my 4th house, conjunct my 5th house cusp. So here, to me, it means an opportunity to take old experiences and find a new way to create a new way to express it, because of course I am a writer, and an author. So that's what first popped into my head, but it's drawn, I could even be drawing on ancestral memory. And of course that's, in my case, I liken it to, drawing. It's weird because just spent a while cleaning out my basement, came across an article that my great-grandmother wrote, and about what it was like to live in the middle of the bald-headed prairie with no idea what you were doing, essentially. So I feel that there's an opportunity here for me to draw on the creativity expressed by my family and move that along to be, to take it one step further. I don't know if that makes any sense at all.
Absolutely. I just think that connects 100%. I was just talking about the Hawaiian people with their ancestries and language and how it was passed on about language. And here you are coming up with a total connection and basement. You think of fourth house, it's like our house and it's our personal stuff. It's so relevant. Oh, thank you.
Well, I've just been doing a lot of fourth house stuff for the last 18 months. And it's like, okay, could we move along, move it along?
Pluto's sitting there for me. I know. It's like, hello. Okay, we're friends, I think. I don't know.
Anyway,
yes.
I yield the floor to the next.
All right, going once, going twice.
I can go. The South Node and the Moon will be in my 9th house on my natal Neptune. And then the Sun and the North Node in my 3rd house. So Sue and I are doing the 3rd, 9th house dance, I guess we call it. And for me, no matter which direction, meaning like no matter which 9th or 3rd, when they show up together, it's about whole-mindedness for me. And so a big part of this for me is, you know, keeping a balance somehow between the big picture and the little parts. Sometimes with myself, and I'm speaking to myself personally here, I have a South Node in Gemini. I can get hung up on the pieces. I can get hung up on the parts. I can get stuck in the mechanics. And so for me, of course, in general, it is about, you know, letting go of beliefs to be open to more, but more specifically to me, it's like a mental integration. And I don't know a better way to say this except for that it really is like finding a different way to work with my own mind. And I don't just mean the brain in my head. That includes the mind that I call the non-local mind, which is not attached to my human body. So my mental faculties, intelligence as a whole, what's available to me. And because my Neptune is involved, no, I'm just prepared that things need to melt away. And I don't mean that as, I just mean like, there are certain things that have just been illusions that I've needed to this point in my life. They've served me well, but some of those illusions, I no longer need them. And so some of this is being open to letting that go, even if I don't know what replaces them. That's part of the exciting part, I guess.
I just wanted to throw something in there before. So many moons ago, in my previous career incarnation, when I was a journalist, I interviewed a man who really believes that the brain is a hologram, which speaks to what Tara was talking about, that only 15% of your brain is actually devoted to cognitive thought. And the other 85% is devoted to sensing, feeling, and emotion. And I really think that, I'm really glad that you brought that up, because I think that's what this eclipse is really about, is, as Tara was talking about, getting in touch with how your whole consciousness,
whatever this thing is we call mind.
Yeah, exactly. And that I hear this really well. Laura, what was going to be yours? And then
So the way that it happens to line up for me is that the nodes and the luminaries are straddling my ascendant descendant, right? So the nodes are in my 1st and 7th, and the moon will be in my 12th, and the sun's in the 6th. It's like a couple degrees both ways.
Wow.
Because I've got an 8th house ascendant, right? So it's right in, it's like the midpoint between the two for me. And part of how I see that is there are things from my past showing back up. I'm looking at possibly teaching at some of my alma maters. So it's like, going back to places I've learned before, but now I'm the educator. So there is this new manifestation of it. And finding new language for what I've studied, but in degrees that aren't necessarily a perfect fit, but there's still a way of making the language work. So I think that's part of how that's manifesting. And there is this piece, because it's also pulls in my Neptune, just because we're born close together, Tara. And so this intuitive piece, and the Jupiter's in my third house. So like the intuitive communication, trusting what I know, regardless of the rational way that I get there.
Yeah, totally.
That's
rationality.
Yeah. This is so great. For myself, it's also third and ninth, like Tara. And I have my sun in the ninth, but in this natally, but in this case, the moon is conjunct my Chiron. Exactly. 5 degrees Sagittarius. Thank you. And in fact, so I am redefining the whys of who I am, what cosmos is. I'm going deeper, much, much deeper. You know, the whys that I had were like mainstream now. I mean, it's like, yeah, we all want to connect our whole self. In fact, I'm redefining, in a sense, what I found out about postmodernism. I went, oh, I like it. It's saying that we're plural, and that this hologram that I agree with, we don't need to like be the whole kit and caboodle. We don't need to be the soup or the potluck. We can say, I see all this smorgasbord out there, and I can identify, and I know what's there, and be aware of it, of this consciousness. So it's like a new, I guess I'm looking at, and how to express that in a short way. At any rate, it's and a lot of it goes, I think part of it is like being authentic, because if we have Chiron involved, it's like realizing, okay, you can tell your story a million times about why this or that isn't working, but let's shift gears and just find out how that might work for other people as a tool. So that opens up the door, and I'm hoping like everything that it won't be too casalimic. I mean, I've got other, yes.
Well, the full moon is transiting Chiron. So there's definitely a healing medicine, you know, I don't know, like as you were talking, so I was like, oh, maybe you're going to like dig up the prescription you need. Like that's what it made it sound like, you know, like with the Chiron conjunct that south stuff. It's like, really, you know, there's availability to tap into that intelligence of what we need naturally. So that's how I feel that there's big opportunity there. If we're not too attached to what it's supposed to sound like, right? I mean, this goes back to what Laura said. If we think words have to mean a certain thing, and if we think certain words have to be said, we will forever limit our ability to connect with ourselves and anything else.
Contruments.
Yes. I think that, you know, the only way you can create new language for old ideas is to get out of your head in the first place, right? That's Jupiter and Pisces square the full moon and the nodal axis is like, okay, you know, just let it go. Just let it go.
Yeah, let it go and let something else pick up, right? Do you know what I mean? This is like the other parts of our intelligence too.
And what could be a word that would say that? Can we think of one right now? I know Laura was saying that somehow we can think of new words, and I often do. I kind of wonder.
Invent them, right?
Yeah,
it's
right
one of the
now.
assignments
Let's invent a word right now. What would be a word that we could let go and find joy? Like rectal joy? No.
Oh. I think
Sue, that was more like a Pluto retrograde thing, and I don't think that any of us. I don't want. I have different ideas.
Maybe we'll think of it for our next show, since we have.
Well, I know that we have Moonbeam next show, but you know, I was thinking of like rectify or retrieve, you know, it's other words. Yeah. Maybe I'm going, oh my goodness. Well, the Mercury retrograde is happening, folks. It was a little ahead of time.
But even if we don't know the word, I mean, this is like good for all of us. So make up your own word. We can all do this. Make up a word, and I think, and then see what happens.
Yeah, and get back to the roots at the same time. Maybe that's a better word. Rectify. We can rectify. Rectify. Relax. Okay.
I mean, if you normally always say the word,
We're being encouraged to stop talking.
Okay. To symbols. See ya.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.